Yes, folks, it's Tales from the Jails with John G. Sutton. I've got some news today. Here we are. My next book is being published. I think it's going to be published later this month by Gadfly Press. The first book is still there, and that's on Amazon. So watch out for the next one, part 2. I've got to start work on part 3 now. It ain't easy writing these books, I write them myself, I'm not no ghostwriter writing my books. Anyway, I'm going to talk today a little bit about the hidden agenda at Strangeways Jail. Following the riots at Strangeways in the year 1990, it started on the 1st of April 1990, by the way, there were numerous accounts as to why the prisoners had rioted. Well, basically, I have certain theories about this, but one of the reasons that the inmates were disgruntled was the fact that there was a hidden agenda of abuse. It was like a way that the inmates were manipulated, brutalized, and mistreated by a system that was put into place really during the time of Norman Brown. Because Norman Brown's, all those who were anywhere near Strangeways in the mid 70s to late 70s and early 80s would know that Norman Brown was there, and he was the number one governor, and he ran a regime whereby we're right, the inmates are not right. So if you'd put somebody on a charge, charge them with an offence against good order and discipline, which was the standard charge, they would automatically get found guilty, virtually automatically found guilty by Norman Brown, and he would put them down the block, or fine them, or take away remission. So. And there was some ridiculous charges going round, but one of the hidden agenda of abuse included things like ripping up letters, losing letters. So that's a diabolical thing to do. But if you got on the wrong side of certain members of staff, and they had to hand out your letters, they'd take the letters out of the envelope, utterly destroy them, rip them into 100 little pieces, get rid of them and give you the empty envelope. So you knew you'd had a letter, but there wasn't any letter in it, so it must have fallen out. That kind of abuse. Now that is diabolical. I mean, I haven't served in prison myself, but I've certainly served in the military. And if you get letters through, then it's a word from home, it's the people that you care about. And to get an actual empty envelope is diabolical, but that was the kind of trick that was played. That or the letters would just totally disappear. Well, in 1979, I got the keys to go up the tower, and when I opened the entrance to the tower up, and went into the darkness, I had a torch with me. I shone the torch, and at the bottom of the pit underneath the tower, there was an empty space, just earth and rubble, But in amongst that was a pile of letters that had just been thrown down there. These had obviously come from the censored office, who just couldn't be bothered to censor them, or didn't have time to censor them, or whatever it was. But there were hundreds of letters down there. When I worked at the Scrubs, I was in the census office one Christmas, and we got to about 23rd of December, and there were still 3 or 4 sacks of mail that we hadn't got round to opening. I said, we're going to have to get some. I wasn't the officer in charge of the census unit. I just worked on the census unit, for a period of time. I said to the senior officer in charge of the census unit, I said, we're going to have to get some extra staff down here. We are not going to be able to cope with this, because there's maybe 1,000 letters, that we haven't gone through. We had to read each one and sign them off. He said, and I said, leave it with me, I'll sort that out. So when I came back after lunch, they'd gone. I said, three sacks of letters. Where have they gone? And I said, don't worry about that. What he had done, I found out what he'd done. He put them into a hand-drawn cart, taken them round to the incinerator where they burnt all the rubbish, and just threw the sacks in. Burnt the lot. Without even opening them, looking into them, nothing. Just emptied them all into the incinerator and burnt the lot. I never said, well, what can you say? I mean, who are you going to go to? Yeah? Diabolical. I thought that was a diabolical trick to play on the inmates, and that was one of the reasons that the prison system had to change, because people were being abused. And it's an offence, isn't it, to interfere with the Queen's Mail, but in the prisons they seem to be a law unto themselves. And of course they claim Crown immunity as well. And then there was the food-free diet. There was one senior officer on was it D-Wing? I think it was D-Wing, yeah. D-Wing. He was a senior officer on D-Wing. D1 was the block that was downstairs, but it had a solid floor on it. And D2, that was level with the rotunda in the main part of the prison. It was started on the 2s, you see. The 1s were downstairs. Yeah, and he used to put inmates on food-free diets. That food-free diet basically involved inmates not getting fed. And in the event that they kicked up, banged on the door, started shouting, ringing the bell, that was good. That's what he wanted. Get the staff in, open the door up, snatch them, take them down to D1. And that kind of nonsense was going on all the time. And of course, when I was a hospital officer, we'd get inmates that were dragged down into D1, and they'd kick up, continue to kick up. And of course, D1 staff would look after them to a certain extent, in their inimitable fashion. But in the event that they proved to be more trouble than they were worth, they used to send for the hospital staff, and we'd speak to the duty doctor, who would say, give them chlorpromazine, so we get a syringe full of that, Largactil, yeah, straight in the jacksie, put them out. That was one of the big reasons. That kind of abuse was the reasons why the Strange Ways riots kicked off, I believe. Yeah, it's the hidden agenda of abuse in HM prisons. I don't think it's there now. I bloody hope it's not. Well, before we go any further with this, as a warning, by the way, grab your goat and go for it. Head for the hills, yeah? Hi to Katie and Paula and Bob the Bob. I've not heard from Bob the Bob for a bit. How are you doing, Bob the Bob? I've heard from Larry. He usually drops me a little insult on here. Thanks, Larry. Yeah, really cheers me up. Yeah, that bit about, I hope it's a blue moon next time you sing. Well, then the moon must be blue. Yeah, because I'm going to sing today. Did you know that in 1956, Elvis Presley had 5 #1 records? So I'm going to go through them all on here, one at a time, but not today. I'll just start with the first one. His first #1 hit in the UK was Heartbreak Hotel. And when you look at what was in the charts in 1956, there was one called Hot Diggity, and it went something like this. Hot diggity, boom, what you do to me, what you do to me, oh, up, diggity, up. Oh, God, yeah. And then they had the Platters. My prayer is to linger with you at the end of a day, all that, Anyway, along came Elvis Presley. And there's no wonder he was the king of rock and roll, because if you look at what was in the charts in 1956, and then along came Elvis Presley singing Heartbreak Hotel, it was just completely unlike anything in the charts at that time. Anyway, I'll just give you a little smattering of it, yeah? Just enough to get you running for the hills. Well, since my baby left me, I found a place to dwell. It's down at the end of Lonely Street at Heartbreak Hotel. Well, baby, now it's ever so lonely. It's so lonely. It's so lonely you could die. Well, since my baby left me, I found a new place to dwell. It's down at the end of Lonely Street, Heartbreak Hotel. There you go. That's just a little smattering of Heartbreak Hotel. I'm going to read you one of my poems now. Some people are saying they find them quite funny. It's from my book. I'm sure you don't want to buy poetry. People don't buy it, you know. I used to go and see it. I used to tour. I've done a tour with, Attila the Stockbroker. Have you heard of him? A punk rock poet. I did a few shows with Attila the Stockbroker. Anyway, this is Toy Boy Blues by John G. Sutton. It's about the little dolls that used to have. Kids had them in the 1980s, 1990s. Barbie and Cindy and all that, you know, and Action Man and everything. You know, they had them dolls. Anyway, this is just what I thought, a little take on the Toy Boys. I call them that. Barbie and Cindy are dollies with dresses and ribbons to wear, long flowing curls that are golden. They make a spectacular pair. Young children, they like to play with them, pretend that they go to the ball, they go to the races and golfing, and always enjoying it all. Now Derek and Ken, they're the toy boys, with curly dark hair and tight pants. The children, aware of the difference, give Barbie and Cindy a chance. That night the disco was crowded. Derek and Ken danced the twist. Barbie and Cindy danced with them. At midnight, the two couples kissed. Next morning was cold for the dollies. Both Barbie and Cindy looked sick. They had made an awful discovery. Neither Derek nor Ken had a dick. Now, people, this tale has a moral, a lesson for us and for them. It's dollies that get all the toy boys, but it's women that get all the men. Toy Boy Blues by John G. Sutton. Tales from the Jails, folks. Do like and subscribe. Thank you very much.